I still remember the exact sound that night, the faint rattle of the jewelry box latch clicking shut. It was the same delicate sound I had heard 1,000 times before, whenever I opened it to wear one of my gold bangles on a festival morning. But that night, it didn't come from my hands. It came from my son's room, and I knew, deep in my bones, that something terrible was happening. For 70 years I had guarded that jewelry box. It wasn't just gold, it was memories, love, sacrifices. Each piece told a story. My wedding necklace from 1969, the emerald earrings my husband gave me after our first child was born, the ruby ring I wore on my last anniversary before he died. That box was my entire life's history, quietly sleeping in velvet until the next family celebration. And my son, my only son, Rohan, he knew that better than anyone. When I first heard the noise, I didn't react. I thought perhaps he was looking for something harmless. But something in the way my heart fluttered told me to get up. I moved quietly, holding the wall for balance, my knees weak, my heart heavy with unease. The hallway was dark, only a strip of yellow light from his door cutting across the floor. I peeked in and froze. He was kneeling beside my cupboard, the jewelry box open in his lap. His fingers were trembling, yet determined, as he lifted one gold necklace after another, placing them into a small black pouch. My breath caught. My own son, the boy I had nursed through fevers, the man whose wedding I had dreamed of for years, was stealing from me. Rohan, my voice cracked, hardly more than a whisper. He jumped, the pouch slipping from his hand. The gold clinked inside it, that sharp, ugly sound echoing in the silence between us. For a moment, we just stared at each other, him with fear, me with disbelief. "Ma, I was just checking something," he stammered. "Checking what?" I asked. My throat burned. My fingers gripped the doorframe to stop myself from collapsing. "Those are my jewels, Rohan. Why are you taking them?" He couldn't meet my eyes. He just kept looking at the floor, then at the bag, then back to me like a child caught lying. But he wasn't a child anymore. He was 38, a grown man, a husband, a father of 2 beautiful daughters. And yet, at that moment, he looked so small, so weak. "Ma, I need money," he said finally, his voice low. "Just for some time. I'll return it." "Money for what?" I asked, trembling. "You have a good job, a car, a house. What kind of money makes you steal from your own mother at midnight?" He hesitated. His eyes darted, searching for words that would make sense. But no words could have prepared me for the truth I was about to hear. "It's for someone important," he said slowly. "Someone who needs my help." My heart stopped. "Someone?" I repeated. "Who?" He looked at me then, and I saw the shame in his eyes, the same shame my husband once carried when he lost his job decades ago. But this wasn't about work or dignity. This was filthier, darker. "It's for Mira," he whispered. For a second, I didn't recognize the name. Then I remembered the woman I'd seen him drop off once, late at night, near the market. The woman with the bright red lipstick and laughter too young for his age. The woman who was not his wife. I felt my knees weaken. Mira? I said. You mean your mistress? He said nothing. His silence screamed louder than any confession. I wanted to slap him, to shake him, to ask him what kind of son he had become. But I just stood there, frozen. My throat closed up, tears burning behind my eyes. You're selling my jewelry for her? I asked in disbelief. For that woman? Ma, please, he said, stepping closer. You don't understand. She's in trouble. She's trying to buy a small house. She's being evicted. And she has no one else. I promised I'd help her. I laughed then, a hollow, broken laugh. And your wife, Rena? Your daughters? Do they know you're helping another woman buy a house with your mother's gold? Don't talk like that. He snapped suddenly, his voice hardened, defensive. You don't know her situation. Mira means something to me. She's different. Different? I spat. Different enough to make you betray your own blood? He clenched his fists, his jaw tight. I'll pay you back. I swear it. But it wasn't about money anymore. It was about something far deeper, something that shattered everything I believed about him. My son, who I raised with values, who I taught to respect women, to protect family honor, had become a stranger before my eyes. That night, I locked the cupboard and hid the keys. I didn't speak to him for days, but inside me a storm brewed fear, anger, heartbreak. I didn't tell Rena. I couldn't. How do you tell your daughter-in-law that her husband has another woman, that he stole his mother's jewels to build a love nest for her? But secrets have their way of leaking, don't they? Within weeks, Rena began to sense something was wrong. She asked me why Rohan was staying out late, why there were calls he wouldn't answer near her. I tried to protect her from the truth, hoping it would all end, hoping he would come to his senses. But then, one morning, the jewelry box was gone. I stood before the empty shelf, my body shaking uncontrollably. The velvet cloth lay crumpled, the space hollow where my life's treasures had once gleamed. He had done it. He had taken it all. I sat on the floor, crying silently, feeling the earth spin beneath me. I didn't call anyone. I didn't confront him. I just sat there, remembering the tiny Rohan who once gave me a handmade bracelet from clay, saying, "Ma, one day I'll buy you real gold." And now, years later, he had taken the real gold away to give it to someone else. That night, when he came home, I looked at him without speaking. He avoided my eyes again. Guilt hung heavy in the air like smoke. I could smell it. I could almost touch it. And that's when something inside me broke. Not my heart, that had already been breaking, but my silence. "Rohan," I said quietly, "tell me the truth. Did you sell it all?" He looked up, his face pale. "I had no choice," he said. "She needed it. She's pregnant." My world went dark. The word pregnant kept echoing in my head like a curse. My son's mistress pregnant. My lips trembled, and I could barely breathe. The room spun, the walls closing in, the air thick with betrayal. For a long moment, I just stared at him, unable to recognize the man sitting in front of me. Pregnant. That meant this wasn't just a fling. It wasn't a mistake he'd fix and forget. It was something deeper, something monstrous that would devour our family. Whose child? I whispered, though my heart already knew the answer. He didn't reply. His silence was confirmation enough. I staggered backward, clutching the side of the chair for balance. Rohan, how could you? You have a wife who's given you everything, 2 daughters who adore you, and now this? You've thrown all of it away for her. He looked at me, eyes glassy but defiant. Ma, it just happened. You don't understand how lonely I was. Rena, she's always busy, always complaining. Mira listens. She cares. I wanted to scream. She cares so much she let you sell your mother's jewelry for her house? That's care? My voice rose, but it wasn't anger, it was pain, deep and raw, like an open wound. You've lost your mind, Rohan. You've lost your soul. He rubbed his temples, as if the conversation exhausted him. I told you I'll pay you back. Why can't you just trust me? You think I wanted to hurt you? Wanted or not, you did, I said, and you've destroyed more than you realize. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. I can't talk about this right now. I have to go. To her? I asked bitterly. He paused at the door but didn't answer. That silence said it all. When the door shut behind him, I collapsed into the chair, clutching my chest. I thought of my late husband, his laughter, his pride in our boy. What would he think if he saw this? His son, a thief in his own mother's home, a liar, a betrayer. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered into the empty room. You promised me, Rohan. You promised to take care of this family. Days turned into weeks. He stopped coming home on time. Sometimes he wouldn't come at all. When Rena asked, he said he was working late. She believed him at first, but soon the cracks began to show. She noticed the change in his clothes, the faint perfume that wasn't hers, the credit card bills piling up, and then came the worst day of all. It was a Friday evening. I was in the kitchen preparing tea when the doorbell rang. Rena answered it, and within seconds her voice turned sharp. "Who are you?" she demanded. I stepped out, wiping my hands on my shawl, and froze. There she was, Mira. She was younger than I remembered. Pretty, yes, but not the kind of beauty that calms a room. Hers was sharp, calculated, almost dangerous. She wore a bright red dress, the same shade of lipstick I'd seen that night near the market, and in her hand she held a small envelope. I need to speak with Rohan, she said, her tone bold, unapologetic. Rena's face turned pale. You what? I could see Rena's hands trembling. I stepped between them before things exploded. He's not home, I said firmly. Whatever you need to say, you can say to me. Mira looked at me with a smug smile. Oh, you'll find out soon enough, she said, slipping the envelope into my hand. He'll know what it's about. And just like that, she turned and left, leaving her perfume behind, a suffocating reminder of everything she had stolen from us. Rena grabbed my arm. Who was that woman? I didn't answer. My fingers shook as I tore open the envelope. Inside was a copy of a property agreement. A small house in the outskirts of the city. And right there, in black ink, under purchaser name, it read, Rohan Malhotra and Mira Sharma. Rena's scream pierced the air. He bought her a house? I couldn't lie anymore. I told her everything, the jewelry, the money, the night I caught him. Every word felt like cutting my own flesh. Rena collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. "All these years," she cried, "I cooked for him, cared for him, raised his children, and he does this?" I sat beside her, holding her hand, but I felt hollow inside. How had it come to this? My son had broken not only my heart, but his wife's, his children's, his own future. That night, when he finally returned, Rena confronted him. Their voices thundered through the house. I stayed in my room, clutching my rosary, praying it would end peacefully, but I could hear the words betrayal, divorce, shame. Then a sudden crash. Rena had thrown the vase against the wall. The girls woke up crying. Rohan's voice trembled, begging her to calm down. But the truth had poisoned everything. The next morning, Rena left with the children. She didn't even look at him. The silence she left behind was deafening. For days, Rohan stayed home, sitting on the veranda, staring at the road like a lost man. I thought maybe guilt would bring him back to his senses. Maybe he'd go apologize to Rena, try to fix things. But instead, he grew colder. One evening, I found him packing a suitcase. "Where are you going now?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "To her. She needs me. She's not well." I felt a rage I hadn't known I could still feel. "She's not well? And what about your wife? Your daughters? Your mother?" "Ma, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I've made mistakes, but I can't just abandon her now. She's carrying my child." I stepped closer, tears spilling down my cheeks. "You already abandoned us, Rohan. You just haven't realized it yet." He looked at me one last time, guilt flickering in his eyes, and walked out the door. That night, I sat alone with my empty jewelry box. The house felt haunted echoes of laughter long gone, walls heavy with silence. I kept staring at that box, remembering the warmth of my husband's touch when he'd given me those jewels. He'd said, "These will protect you when I'm gone." But how could he have known it would be our own son who'd take them away? I thought that was the end of my story. But I was wrong, because 2 months later I got a call that would tear open the wound all over again and reveal a truth far darker than I ever imagined. It was early morning when the phone rang, an unknown number flashing on the screen. My heart sank the moment I picked it up. A woman's voice, flat and official, said, "Is this Mrs. Malhotra? I'm calling from City Hospital. Your son, Mr. Rohan Malhotra, has been admitted." For a second I couldn't speak. My throat went dry. "Admitted? What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling. "There was an accident," she said. "He's stable for now, but you should come immediately." I didn't even change my clothes. I threw on my shawl, grabbed my purse, and rushed out. My hands shook so badly I could barely lock the door. The taxi ride felt endless every second, another needle of fear stabbing through my heart. I prayed the whole way. "God, please, not like this. Please, don't take my son away like this." When I reached the hospital, the smell of antiseptic hit me hard. The nurse led me to the ICU waiting area. Through the small glass window, I saw him, my son, pale and bandaged, tubes running across his body. My Rohan, my foolish, lost Rohan. The doctor explained that he had been in a car crash on the highway. He's lucky to be alive, the doctor said. We found alcohol in his system. My knees nearly gave way. I sank into the nearest chair, whispering, "What have you done to yourself, my child?" And then, as if my misery wasn't enough, another name pierced the air. The nurse said, "The woman with him, Meera Sharma, didn't make it." My breath stopped. "What?" "She was in the passenger seat," the nurse continued softly. "Severe injuries. She passed away on the way here." For a moment, the world went silent. Even my heartbeat paused. I looked again at Rohan, lying there between life and death, and all I could think was he had destroyed everything for that woman, and now even she was gone. Hours passed in a blur. I sat by his bedside, holding his hand, whispering prayers. When he finally opened his eyes, the first word he said was, "Meera?" I swallowed hard. "She's gone, Rohan." His face twisted in disbelief. No, she can't be. She was fine." I told her not to panic. His voice cracked. "Where is she? Tell me she's okay." "She didn't make it," I said quietly. He turned his face away, his shoulders shaking. The monitors beeped faster. "It's my fault," he whispered. "She was crying. We were arguing. She said she couldn't live like that anymore. I tried to calm her down, but she grabbed the wheel." He broke down completely then, sobbing like a child. And for all my anger, for all the betrayal, my heart still ached for him, because no matter what he'd done, he was still my son. I stroked his hair, whispering, "You'll get through this, Rohan. You have to." But I didn't know then that this tragedy was only the beginning of another storm. 2 days later, a man came to the hospital, well-dressed, middle-aged, with sharp eyes. He introduced himself as Amit Sharma, Meera's husband. "Yes, husband." I froze. "Her husband?" He nodded, his expression cold. "We've been married 8 years. I know everything about your son's affair." He handed me a file. Inside were photographs, Rohan and Meera together, at restaurants, on trips, even in front of that new house. She thought he'd leave you all and start a new life with her. But he lied to both of us. I stared at the pictures, my stomach churning. "What do you mean, lied?" Amit's voice was bitter. "The money he gave her, the jewelry he sold, it wasn't all for her house. She was helping him hide something else. He owed a large debt to someone dangerous. She thought she was saving him, but he was using her too." My world started spinning again. "No," I whispered. "My son wouldn't." "He would," Amit cut in sharply. "She found out a week ago. That's why they were arguing that night. She threatened to tell his wife everything, to go to the police. That's why they crashed. She grabbed the wheel during the fight. My hands trembled as I clutched the chair. I didn't know what to believe anymore. My son? My blood capable of deceit so deep? Amit leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I don't want trouble, Mrs. Malhotra. My wife's gone, and I've lost enough. But you should know those jewels he sold. The money didn't all go to her. Some of it went to a man named Sanjay, a moneylender. Your son is in serious debt. He left after that, leaving the file behind." I sat there for hours, Staring at those photos, every truth was another knife. My son wasn't just a victim of temptation. He was drowning in lies. When Rohan was discharged, I didn't tell him about Amit's visit. I couldn't bear to watch him fall apart any further. He moved back home for recovery, silent most days, staring at the floor like a man who'd lost everything. Rena refused to return. The children didn't want to see him, and I was torn between love and disgust. I cooked for him, helped him walk, but inside, I couldn't forgive him. One evening, as I was cleaning his room, I found something under his pillow, a small brown envelope. Inside were receipts from the jewelry shop where he'd sold my ornaments, but attached to it was something else, a bank slip showing a transfer of money to Sanjay Kumar. My hands went cold. The amount was huge. My jewelry hadn't been for love or pity, it had been payment. Payment for something I didn't yet understand. That night, I confronted him. "Rohan," I said softly, "who is Sanjay Kumar?" His eyes widened. "Where did you hear that name?" "From the truth," I said. "You've lied enough. Tell me everything." He pressed his hands to his face, breathing heavily. "Ma, please, it's complicated. I've seen the receipts. I know you sold my jewelry. I know Mira wasn't the only reason. What have you done?" He looked up at me, tears pooling in his eyes. "I borrowed money from Sanjay last year for a business investment. It went wrong. He threatened to ruin me, Ma, to expose me. I didn't know what to do. Mira said she'd help me, but then she started demanding things. The house, the promises, it all got out of control." "And the crash?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded miserably. "She found out I'd lied about the money. She wanted to end it. I tried to stop her." His voice broke. She grabbed the wheel. The car flipped. I stared at him, my heart aching. Lies upon lies, but beneath them I saw the broken boy I once knew, trapped, desperate, drowning. "I just wanted to fix things," he whispered, "but everything I touched turned to dust." I walked out of the room without a word. I didn't know whether to hug him or hate him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that man Sanjay, about debts unpaid, about consequences that don't die just because a woman does. And sure enough, the next day, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, a tall man with a scar on his cheek stood there, smiling coldly. "You're Mrs. Malhotra?" he asked. I nodded slowly. He handed me a small note. It had only 3 words. "Your son owes blood." The words on that note froze my heart. Your son owes blood. I stared at them, my hands trembling so violently I could barely hold the paper. The man's smirk lingered for a moment before he tipped his head slightly, turned, and walked away, leaving the faint scent of tobacco and menace behind. I stood there in the doorway for what felt like minutes, my mind blank. Then slowly, fear seeped in. Real, bone-deep fear. This wasn't a debt collector. This was something darker, something that meant danger wasn't over, it was standing at my doorstep. When Rohan woke later that morning, pale and weak from the accident, I showed him the note. The color drained from his face instantly. He grabbed the paper, read it twice, then sank back onto the bed. "They found me," he whispered. Who? I demanded. Who are these people? He pressed a hand to his forehead, his voice barely audible. Sanjay's men. I thought they'd backed off after I paid part of the money. But Mira's death, it messed everything up. The rest of the payment was supposed to come from selling the house. My heart twisted. The same house you bought in both your names? He nodded miserably. It was never about love, Ma. She knew that. It was a cover, but she started believing it was real. I kept promising her things I couldn't give. I felt sick. And now what? You expect me to sit here while these men threaten our family? I'll handle it, he said, trying to sound strong though his voice shook. Just don't open the door for anyone, please. For the next few days, I lived like a prisoner in my own home. Every knock on the door made me jump. Every sound in the night felt like danger creeping closer. Rohan barely ate. He kept making phone calls, whispering in the corner, pacing like a man waiting for Judgment Day. And then, one evening, as I sat quietly praying, he came to me, eyes bloodshot, his face pale. Ma, he said, I need your help, just this one last time. I looked at him, weary and wary. What now, Rohan? I need whatever little gold you still have. Just a few bangles, that's all. I swear this is the last time. They'll kill me otherwise. I stared at him, tears stinging my eyes. After everything you've done, after all the lies, you still have the courage to ask me for more? Please, he begged, kneeling at my feet. I don't want to die. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I can't fix them without your help. I wanted to turn away. I wanted to say no. But the sight of him, my son, broken, desperate, trembling like a frightened child, broke something inside me again. I went to the old cupboard where I had hidden the few things left: my husband's gold watch, 2 small rings, and the thin chain I wore every day under my blouse. I handed them to him silently. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. You'll never regret this, Ma, he said, his voice shaking. Once I clear this, I'll start fresh. I'll bring Rena and the girls back. I'll make you proud again. But in my heart, a voice whispered, You've said that before. He left that night. It was raining hard. I watched from the veranda as he stepped into the darkness, clutching the little envelope of gold. Something in me knew he wouldn't be coming back soon. 3 days passed. No calls, no message, nothing. Then, late one evening, the police came. 2 officers stood at my door, their faces grim. My heart sank before they even spoke. Are you Mrs. Malhotra, mother of Rohan Malhotra? One asked gently. Yes, I managed to say, barely breathing. There's been an incident, he said. Your son was found unconscious in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. He's alive but in critical condition. My knees buckled. The room spun. They caught me before I hit the ground. When I reached the hospital, he was barely recognizable, bruised, swollen, bloodied. His clothes were torn, his face stitched. He looked like a shadow of himself. The doctor said he'd been beaten badly and left for dead. It seems like a message, the doctor said gravely. Someone wanted to make sure he survived to suffer. I sat beside his bed all night, holding his hand, whispering prayers that felt empty. The machines beeped rhythmically, each sound slicing through the silence. When he finally woke, his voice was a faint rasp. "They took everything, Ma, everything." I brushed the hair from his forehead. "Who, Rohan? Tell me." "Sanjay's men. They said the gold wasn't enough. They want double now. Or next time, it won't just be me." Fear shot through me. "They threatened you again?" He shook his head weakly. "No, they threatened you." I froze. My heart stopped for a second. "Me?" He nodded, tears welling up. "They said if I don't pay in 7 days, they'll come for you. They know where you live." I couldn't speak. I just sat there, trembling, my mind spinning between fear and disbelief. My own son's sins had painted a target on my back. That night, as I walked home from the hospital, the streets felt strange. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound too loud. I locked the door, pulled the curtains tight, and sat in darkness, praying for dawn. But when morning came, something inside me had changed. I realized I couldn't keep living in fear, waiting for the next knock, the next tragedy. I had already lost my peace, my family, my jewels. What more could they take? That's when I made a decision, a desperate one. I found the address from Amit's file, the man, Sanjay Kumar. If he wanted blood, he would have to take it from someone who had nothing left to lose. The next afternoon, I dressed in my oldest sari, tied my hair back, and took a bus across the city. The neighborhood was filthy, crowded with tiny shops and dark alleys. I followed the directions until I reached a rusted iron gate. A man sat outside smoking. His eyes flicked up lazily. "You're looking for someone?" "I need to see Sanjay," I said, trying to sound steady. He smirked. "And who are you?" "I'm Rohan Malhotra's mother." His smile faded instantly. He stood, looked me up and down, and without another word, pushed the gate open. "Come in," he said. Inside, the air smelled of cheap cologne and sweat. At a desk sat a man with slicked-back hair and cold, calculating eyes. He looked at me with mild amusement. "Ah," he said slowly, "the mother. I was wondering when you'd come." I clenched my hands together to stop them from shaking. "Please," I said. "My son's made mistakes, but he's suffered enough. I'll do anything to end this." Sanjay leaned back, a cruel smile forming on his lips. "Anything?" he repeated. "Yes," I whispered. "Anything." He tapped his cigarette against the ashtray, his eyes gleaming. "Good," he said softly, "because there's something your son never told you." My heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Sanjay smiled wider. "He didn't just owe me money. He owed me a secret." His words. He owed me a secret, sliced through the air like a knife. I stared at Sanjay, trying to understand, my pulse thudding in my ears. "A secret?" I repeated, barely breathing. "What kind of secret?" Sanjay leaned forward, elbows resting on the desk, smoke curling around his face. "Your son wasn't just in debt because of gambling or failed business, Mrs. Malhotra. He was laundering money for someone. And he got greedy." My mouth went dry. "Laundering money?" He nodded slowly. almost amused by my horror. He thought he could make a quick profit by moving extra cash under my nose. But he slipped. I found out. He begged me to give him time to fix it. So I did. He used your jewelry money to cover part of it, but not all. I shook my head, feeling the room tilt. No, you're lying. My son, he may have done foolish things, but he's not a criminal. Sanjay's laugh was low and cruel. Everyone says that about the people they love. But your boy crossed lines, and now he owes for it. Mira knew everything. She helped him clean the money through that house deal, but she turned on him in the end. I froze. Turned on him? Why? He stubbed out his cigarette, his tone turning cold. Because she found out the money he was moving wasn't mine. It belonged to a politician, and your son was planning to run away with it with her, of course. But when she realized what kind of men he'd stolen from, she panicked. That's why she grabbed the wheel. My stomach dropped. So the accident wasn't an accident, Sanjay said, his eyes glinting. It was a woman realizing too late that the man she loved had dug both their graves. I felt sick, my vision blurred. Why are you telling me this? He smirked. Because the money's still missing. Your son claims he doesn't have it, but someone does. And if I don't find it soon, others will. And those men don't leave witnesses. The world around me seemed to spin, colors fading into nothing. I don't know anything about this money, I said, my voice trembling. I'm just his mother. I've lost everything already. What more do you want? Sanjay leaned closer, his voice low and deliberate. I want you to tell your son that his time is running out. He's got 3 days. After that, I can't protect him anymore. He motioned to the door. Go home, old woman, and pray. I stumbled out into the blinding afternoon sun, my legs barely holding me. The sounds of the street barking dogs, honking cars, felt far away. My son had done something far worse than betrayal. He had waded into sin so deep there might be no return. When I reached home, I sat in the dark for a long time, clutching the corner of my shawl. Memories flooded back Rohan as a little boy, showing me his first school report card, the time he saved his pocket money to buy me a flower for my birthday. How did that child turn into the man who stole, lied, and laundered dirty money? By nightfall, I decided to go to the hospital again. I had to look into his eyes and hear the truth. When I entered his room, he looked weaker, but his eyes still darted around nervously, as if expecting danger even within white hospital walls. Ma, he whispered, forcing a smile. You came again. I sat beside him, holding his hand. Rohan, I went to see Sanjay. His smile vanished instantly. You what? He told me everything, I said, tears welling. The money, the deal, Mira's involvement, everything. He turned away, pressing his hands to his face. You shouldn't have gone there. It's not safe. I don't care about safety, I snapped, my voice breaking. You've dragged our family through filth, Rohan. Tell me the truth. Did you steal that money? He was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, Yes. The word broke me. It tore through me like thunder through glass. I closed my eyes, and tears streamed down my face. Why? I asked. my voice barely a whisper. "Why would you do this?" He looked up at me with hollow eyes. "I thought I could make more from it, Ma. I just wanted to give you a better life, to fix our house, to send my girls abroad. But one wrong deal became 10. Mira got involved. Then Sanjay's men found out. I tried to return it, but it was too late." "Where's the money now?" I asked. He hesitated. "Hidden," he whispered. "I put it somewhere safe. I thought after Mira's death I could use it to start again. But now I don't even know if I can live that long." I grabbed his arm. "You have to tell me where it is, Rohan. Those men will kill you." He shook his head weakly. "If I tell you, you'll be in danger too. They'll follow you. I can't risk it." "Then at least tell the police," I pleaded. He smiled sadly. "You think the police can protect me from them?" That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside him until dawn, watching his chest rise and fall, wondering if every breath would be his last. By morning, I had made another decision. If my son wouldn't save himself, I would. I went back home and searched every corner of the house, his drawers, his cupboards, even under the floor tiles. I found nothing, but then, as I moved the old photo albums in my husband's cupboard, I felt something odd, a loose board. I pried it open with shaking hands, and there it was, a small black bag, inside bundles of cash, thick and wrapped in rubber bands. My breath hitched. There had to be at least 30 lakh rupees. I sat back, clutching it, tears spilling down my cheeks. This was it, the money that had destroyed everything. I didn't know what to do. If I gave it to Sanjay, maybe they'd spare Rohan. But could I trust him? Could I hand over this poison and hope it would end there? I spent the whole day staring at that bag, my heart and mind at war. When night fell, I made my choice. I wrapped the money in an old sari, hid it inside my bag, and took a taxi back to Sanjay's office. But when I reached there, the gate was locked. The place was dark. Only one man stood outside, smoking. He looked up when he saw me and smirked. "Looking for Sanjay?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I need to give him something." The man's eyes glinted. "You're too late." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He took one last drag and threw the cigarette to the ground. "Sanjay's dead. Found this morning. Shot twice in the head." I staggered backward. "Dead?" He nodded. "And if you've got what I think you've got, you'd better run." My pulse thundered. My hands clenched around the bag inside my purse. I turned and hurried back to the street, my mind spinning. If Sanjay was dead, that meant someone else was looking for this money. Someone far worse. And as I walked through the dim streetlights that night, I realized something chilling. Sanjay wasn't the last man who knew about my son's secret. There was someone else still out there, watching, waiting. I barely remember how I reached home that night. My legs moved on their own, my shawl soaked with sweat and rain, my mind a whirlpool of confusion and fear. Sanjay was dead. That meant the debt, the money, the danger, none of it had truly ended. It had only shifted, like a shadow changing form. When I unlocked the door, the house felt colder than usual, darker. I shut it behind me, double-bolted it, and leaned against the wall, gasping for air. The bag of cash sat heavy in my arms. a curse wrapped in cloth. I wanted to throw it in the fire, to burn it all, but something inside me whispered that this wasn't over, that someone would come looking for it. And I was right. Not long after midnight, I heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, then 3 knocks, not loud, but firm. My heart froze. I didn't move. The knocks came again. Mrs. Malhotra. A deep voice called softly, "We need to talk." I stayed silent, praying he'd go away, but then came the sound of metal scratching, someone trying the lock. I ran to the bedroom, clutching the bag, my pulse racing. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I hid the money under the loose floorboard where I'd found it. The irony made me want to scream. A moment later, the front door creaked open. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The living room light flicked on. A tall figure entered, broad shoulders, a black jacket, and the kind of quiet confidence that made my blood run cold. He didn't look like Sanjay's men. He looked worse. "Mrs. Malhotra," he said again, his tone calm, measured. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." My voice trembled. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "Let's just say I'm cleaning up Sanjay's unfinished work." I realized then that Sanjay's death wasn't random. This man was the next link in the chain, the one who wanted the money, the one who wouldn't hesitate to spill blood for it. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said weakly, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed, almost bored. "Please, don't lie. You're old, and I don't like hurting old people, but I will if I have to." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Please, my son's already paid enough." "Not yet," he said. "Where is it?" My mind raced. If I told him, he'd kill me and take it. If I didn't, he'd search the house. I needed time, just a few minutes. So I whispered, "It's at the hospital. My son has it." He studied me for a moment, his dark eyes narrowing. "You're lying." I forced a shaky breath. "No, I swear. He hid it in his locker at the hospital. Please, I'll take you there myself." He smiled coldly. "You're brave, Maji. Or foolish." He gestured toward the door. "Let's go." My hands trembled as I picked up my keys. The night outside was silent, except for the distant hum of traffic. He followed closely, his hand in his pocket, where I knew a gun was waiting. I prayed silently, "God, if this is how it ends, protect my son." When we reached the hospital, I led him toward the side corridor, dark, empty. The security guard barely glanced up. My heart hammered so loudly, I was sure the man could hear it. "This way," I whispered, guiding him toward Rohan's ward. But as we turned the corner, my eyes caught a glimpse of something: 2 police officers standing near the nurse's station. My mind sparked with one desperate plan. I stumbled suddenly, clutching my chest. "Oh, my heart!" I cried, collapsing to the floor. The man cursed under his breath, kneeling beside me. "Get up, old woman!" I screamed then, loud, sharp, enough to make heads turn. The officers rushed forward. The man panicked, grabbed my arm, and pulled me up roughly. But before he could drag me away, one of the officers shouted, "Hey! What's going on there?" The man bolted. He shoved me aside and ran down the corridor. The police chased after him, their footsteps echoing. I lay there, trembling, tears streaming down my face as nurses surrounded me, asking if I was okay. By the time the police returned, the man had vanished into the night. But the message was clear he would be back. I spent the rest of the night sitting beside Rohan's bed, holding his hand. He was awake but weak, his eyes tired. I told him everything, the man, the threat, Sanjay's death. He looked shattered. "Ma, this is all my fault," he whispered. "You shouldn't have gone there. You shouldn't be involved." I squeezed his hand tightly. "You're my son. I'll always be involved. But now, you have to make it right." He stared at me, tears in his eyes. "I can't. It's too late." "No," I said firmly. "It's not. You still have a chance to tell the truth." The next morning, he asked to speak to the police. He confessed everything, the laundering, the stolen money, Mira's death, Sanjay's threats. It took hours. I sat outside the room, listening to his broken voice through the door, each word tearing at my heart. When it was over, the inspector came out and said, "Your son's brave for coming clean. It'll take time, but we'll protect him and you." For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in forever: relief. But peace never stays long in my house. 2 nights later, Rohan's condition worsened suddenly. The doctors rushed in, alarms blaring. I watched helplessly through the glass as they tried to revive him. Minutes felt like hours. Then one doctor stepped out, his face solemn. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We did everything we could." The world went silent. My knees gave out. My son, my foolish, broken, beloved boy, was gone. They said it was a blood clot from the accident. I knew better. I'd seen too much. Somewhere deep down, I knew his death wasn't natural. Maybe that man had reached him even here. Maybe the curse of that money had claimed its final victim. A week later, I buried him beside his father. The rain poured down as I stood alone, holding the same shawl I'd wrapped around him when he was a baby. The police said the money was confiscated as evidence. I never saw it again, and I didn't want to. Now months have passed. The house is quiet again, but it's not peaceful. Sometimes I hear faint footsteps in the hall at night, or the soft click of a jewelry box that no longer exists. Maybe it's my guilt haunting me, or maybe it's the echoes of everything we lost. People ask me why I still live here, alone, surrounded by ghosts. I tell them because this house holds the truth of what love can become when poisoned by greed. My son sold my jewelry to buy his mistress a house, but in the end he sold much more than gold. He sold his soul. And though he left this world, I pray his spirit finds forgiveness somewhere I never could give it, because I loved him. God help me. I loved him even when he destroyed me. And every night, before I sleep, I whisper to the dark, "You've paid your debt, Rohan." But I'm still paying mine. Then I close my eyes, waiting for morning, hoping that somewhere in the silence my son finally found peace.